Well, it's been a busy week, actually a busy couple of weeks. Had some debates. Our president got the coronavirus. Our president got cured of the coronavirus. And the ongoing war to subvert our American processes by communist ideals continues apace. I'd like to talk about a number of things, but let's start with Amy Coney Barrett's upcoming hearings for confirmation to the highest court in the land. She is going to be probably a conservative judge. And by conservative, it means that she will weigh her opinions based upon the letter and the spirit of the law, taking into account the writings that were prevalent of the day, where, think of it as extraneous information that's kind of important, is then reviewed and applied to the laws that we wrote to govern ourselves. And not to do as so many of the previous administration's important judges have done, which is to turn activist and attempt to legislate from the bench. That's not their job. In point of fact, those that are decrying her appointment are people that seriously need to understand that they should read the Constitution, not try and pervert and change it. Anyway, this is a letter, an entry from the Washington Post of 2 or 3 days ago. The Washington Post, where democracy dies in print. Anyway, Amy Coney Barrett served as handmaid in Christian group People of Praise. And they go on to discuss this. While Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett has faced questions about how her Catholic faith might influence her jurisprudence, she has not spoken publicly about her involvement in People of Praise, a small Christian group founded in the 1970s and based in South Bend, Indiana. Barrett, a federal appellate judge, has disclosed serving on the board of a network of private Christian schools affiliated with the group. The organization, however, has declined to confirm that she is a member. In recent years, it removed from its website editions of People of Praise magazine, first those that included her name and photograph, and then all archives of the magazine itself. Barrett has had an active role in the organization, as have her parents, according to documents and interviews that help fill out a picture of her involvement with a group that keeps its teachings and gatherings private. You can tell the tone of this. I'm not going to go on with the rest of it, but basically they're saying, well, what have you got to hide? And it's like her faith is out in the open. She has made it very plain that the church plays a very large role in her life and in her upbringing of her children and in the sanctity of her marriage and her family at large. And she has no reason to be apologetic about such a thing. Nobody does, no matter what your faith is. What you believe is what you believe. However, the leftists in this nation don't seem to like that. They call her behavior into question, and I'll get around to why that's a little bit strange soon enough. But it underscores that the communists, and let's call them out for what they are, they're communists. They may wear badges of office. They may wear, the title Congresswoman or Congressman, but they're communists. They're backed and supported by the Communist Party. They push a leftist agenda that is dripping with Marxism. And they remind us almost constantly that there should be no God before their state and their right to oppress and rule through oppression. Anyway, so yesterday, the Miami Archbishop blasts handmaiden criticism of Amy Coney Barrett. And this is an article in the Catholic News Agency's website. The chair of the U.S. Bishops' Religious Freedom Committee responded Thursday to the ongoing scrutiny of Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett's religious beliefs. He says, quote, "The Constitution specifically says there should be no religious tests for office," end quote. The bishop goes on to say, Archbishop, I can't pronounce his name, told CNA on Thursday of Barrett, whose confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court are set to begin October 12th before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Those who are, quote, "raising the issue," end quote, of Barrett's religious beliefs during consideration for a nomination to the Supreme Court, he said, are not honoring the principles of our Constitution and thereby contribute to undermining the rule of law of our nation. And he goes on to say a few other astute observations, but I just want to pin it right there and say that I agree. The people that are raising issue with her faith, merely for having faith and practicing it, not giving lip service to it while wearing, African garb and going down on one knee in most holy sympathy for the villainy that runs through our streets. No. One must not actually be a godly person because, as noted before, there is no God before the state to these people. There is no redemption for you if you do not worship the state, if you do not take communion at the altar of intersectionality and critical race theory, if you do not bow in shame and abject humiliation for being anything other than Black Lives Matter and a Marxist. Maybe that's not fair to say. Maybe I'm just, overreacting. Or maybe we're getting a quick look at a new fascist rise. And would it surprise anybody that the fascists of New York are after the Jews? Why is it always the Jews? I don't know. Why is it always the Jews? Maybe because they're an easy target. Maybe it's because they're used to going after the Jews. Anyway, you may or may not have heard that de Blasio, actually it started with Cuomo, but anyway, they're targeting lockdowns ostensibly in the name of fighting the spikes of coronavirus. And the Orthodox Jewish community seems to be where they're focusing their efforts. And they've made this statement, de Blasio, that he will stamp out this behavior of worshiping your God outdoors, in groups, socially distanced, with masks. Oh no, can't do that. Can't worship your God. No. You can go riot, but you can't worship. Anyway, the article in Politico is entitled "Scapegoating Jews: Outrage After de Blasio Faults Jewish Community for Crowded Brooklyn Funeral." Byline of New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio sparked controversy Tuesday evening after ordering the shutdown of a large Orthodox Jewish funeral in Brooklyn and vowing to fine or arrest residents who continued to defy social distancing rules. "My message to the Jewish community and all communities is simple. The time for warnings has passed. I've instructed the New York Police Department to proceed immediately to summons or even arrest those who gather in large groups," de Blasio said in a tweet Tuesday night. "This is about stopping this disease and saving lives, period." Yeah, well, you might have been able to do that a lot more effectively if, maybe your boss, Cuomo, hadn't ordered so many people to be sent to nursing homes and killing thousands upon thousands of people. Yeah. But no, if you're Jewish, no. The Jewish Orthodoxy, they're responsible for spreading corona now, not crappy practices, not rioters in the streets. No. It's the Jews. Yeah, that sounds very familiar. Doesn't that sound rather 1930-ish? Maybe Berlin, maybe, dare I say, the Nationalist Party under a well-known guy with a shitty mustache? Yeah. In any event, he goes on to try and defend his point, but screw him. You know, I really don't care. What's kind of interesting is the next thing that came out of his mouth was he's warning the Orthodox Jewish protesters of no tolerance policy for violence. Yeah, violence. Their violent acts were to burn masks in the streets. That was their violence. You know, I have called myself for that very thing. It's time to burn the mask. It's time to remind our little petty dictators that this is the United States of America, and we have, amongst other things, freedom of movement. We also have the right to the pursuit of happiness vis-a-vis to open up our businesses, to serve our communities, to serve our clients, to go to church or synagogue or whatever it is that you use to, to protest your faith before your God. But it's violence to burn a mask. Apparently it's just a peaceful protest to drive a car through a plate window and loot, large stores. That's okay. But burning a mask in protest to remind people that no mandate is above the law. And the law says you are free. And these little tyrants need to be reminded that we are free. And the easiest way to do that is to start living free. I was going to say more on this, but I think I've said exactly what I wanted to say, but I do want to point something out. This is from the New York City government COVID-19 data page. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at case rates. And I'm just going to blow through these a little bit. So this is the case rates. This is bad. This is, well, still bad, but not, oh my God, freak out bad. Let's look at death rates. Okay, again, 0. 0 is good. This, bad. Okay. Percent positive tests. Again, light blue is good, dark blue is bad. Okay. Where do you think most of the Jewish communities are? Would it surprise you to find out that they are in this section right here? Right here, where there are fewer positive tests, where there are as few as 0 deaths, and where the case rate per 100,000 is amongst the lowest in the city, that has the highest contagion and death rate in the nation. But it's the Jews that are doing this. Okay, that's fine. That's not fun. Not fun at all. I want to give us all a little history lesson. Who are we? How is the city on the hill formed? It is formed through Western philosophy, which is the Judeo-Christian faiths that were honored and adhered to by our founders. I would remind everybody of a very simple thing called our First Amendment. Our First Amendment reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. To peaceably assemble. Freedom of religion is the foundation of our civil liberties. We don't have a state government, a federal government religion. We don't have state religions. We have our religions, whatever they may be you Christian or Jew or Muslim, or in San Francisco, you can apparently be a Satanist. It's a freedom of religion. I don't really want to have them over for Saturday brunch, but, you know, to each their very own. Unless you're in New York and you're a Jew. Yeah, that's not so good. But I'd like to also remind us of something else besides, you know, our First Amendment. And I know that you've seen this before. This is a quote from John Adams. It's from a letter. I actually read a larger portion of it in a previous discussion. But it states quite simply, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And so I would ask you at this time to take a long look at those that would be our betters, specifically the progressives, the Marxists, the communists. They are trying right now to build a communist state instead of the United States of America. These are educated people. And, you know, there are those that laugh and say, well, you know, they know so much and they think that they can run us because they know so much. Well, okay, let's go for that for just a moment. Let's assume that's true. I don't, but let's assume it for sake of argument. These are the very same people, these educated people, who know that communism has led to hundreds of millions of deaths every time it has been implemented. It is implemented in blood. Because the simple fact is this: if they promise to give you things for free, the only way that they can do that is to take the funding, the property, to take away everything from you first. And then whatever's left after they've decided what, you know, well, this belongs to the state, then you will then be able to compete to stand in line for the crumbs. That is not America. That is not the faith that we were built upon. We have faith. All of us have faith. I myself am a Christian. I'm a pretty shitty one. I know this. But when I hear people talking about Jews as being the root of all evil, I would remind these people that Christians and Jews have philosophical synthesis along many lines. The place where we diverge is that Christians believe that Christ is the Son of God. The Jews don't say that Christ didn't exist. They merely look at him as a prophet. They are waiting for their Savior still. And that's why it's called faith. We believe what we believe. They believe what they believe. But what they believe and what we believe are not very far apart. We all believe in the Ten Commandments. We all believe in the covenant of Abraham. All of us. And eventually that led to the foundation of this nation. And we have much to be proud of. And we have much to preserve. And the problem that we have right now is that we have much to be angry about too. I know I'm angry. I'm foaming at the mouth angry when I stop and I think about what these people are trying to do, when I listen to them speak, when I listen to them lie, when I listen to them denigrate good people, when I see them turning a blind eye to murder in our streets, when I see them advocating for the removal of those that we have a long relationship and vested need in to protect us and to enforce our laws. I get angry when those people do their jobs and then those that are responsible for administering the law turn a blind eye to criminality because it's convenient for them to do so. It's within their viewpoint because they don't want to have people locked up for crimes. They don't want to have law and order. They need chaos because chaos will break our spirit. And so I get very angry. And I think to myself, no, I don't want these people out of office. I want their blood. And I very often feel that way. And I doubt that I am alone in that. And while consumed with one of those moments, I heard a man say something, John Voight, and maybe you've seen it. You should look it up. His statements are on YouTube. And he gave what I can only describe as a prayer for America's soul. And this is a man of very clear faith. Whether you like him or whether you don't, there is one thing that is compelling about him, and that is his honesty, his forthrightness. And he said something that gave me pause. He said, in the midst of this prayer that he was giving, lay down the sword of ego. And that got my attention. And like I said, I'm not a very good Christian. But I heard the word, and I don't mean John Voight. And the word is that, in layman's terms, this is not for my will to see through to the end. It is the will of God that will be done. And so if you are angry, okay, I understand that. I'm with you. But lay down the sword of ego. Because anger is wrath. Wrath is a sin. And over the years, you may have noticed that when you've gotten angry, it's seductive. It coils up inside you. And when you give vent to it, it starts to feel good. And eventually, it starts to supplant your better self, your better nature. Be very wary of your anger and never act in anger, particularly now. So instead, when you say, well, what can I do? Well, some people say, buy guns. Yeah, okay. Maybe that's a good idea. But you don't take up arms against your neighbor. And you're certainly not going to take up arms against our governments. So instead, you should fight with what you have that is not done in anger. Use your voice. Use your mind. Talk to people. Open yourself up and speak to people. And for the love of God, whomever that may be to you, vote in person. And I'd like to thank you for taking the moment out. And I wish you well. God bless America.